I was halfway through flipping a steak when she climbed onto a folding table and announced to 50 people that my pasture was now a shared amenity. I didn't shout. I didn't throw a fit. I walked to the gate at sunset, slid a chain through the bars, and let the lock speak. A minute later, the sheriff's lights washed the grass in red and blue, while I held up the deed, and the party learned exactly how much paper weighs. My name is Mason Hart. Seven Cedars Ranch sits on the edge of Willow Ridge Meadows in Bitter Creek County, Colorado. Small to some folks, but it's church at sunrise and therapy after sundown. To me, a windmill that ticks when the breeze finds it. A basalt ridge that glows orange every evening. A shallow ditch that glitters silver when the headgate opens in June. I came here with two things. My uncle left me a fence drilled into rock and a file cabinet. He called the backbone, he used to say. Rules are fine when they're real. The trouble starts when people start talking like their wishes signed your title. The trouble arrived at 6:02 a.m. on a Monday in a coral blazer holding a clipboard. Diana Crowell, HOA President. 3 raps on my door and a smile like she'd baked me a pie. Landscape non-compliance, $500 sign here, or it doubles at noon. I was still in my work boots from the night shift. I looked past her at sunlight climbing the ridge and asked if the Bylaws reached past lot 188, or if she just wished they did. She smirked and said, "Everything that affects the vibe is in scope." Then she taped an envelope to my porch post and glided back to her Lexus. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I made coffee. Took a photo of the notice with the time on my phone and opened 2 folders on my laptop. Proof and paper by Wednesday. A glossy HOA newsletter appeared, zip-tied to my gate. Community recreation plan, opening the adjacent meadow. Someone had circled my parcel in pink marker with a smiley face that night. My neighbor Ben texted a screenshot of the chat. We'll formalize usage after Saturday's kickoff cookout. There were heart reactions. A guy named Toby asked if anyone had checked boundaries. He got a single thumbs down, and the whole thread moved on. You know what I mean. I walked the line with my phone, filmed each T-post, each pin flag flashing in the grass. The corner cap stamped BC 19. 472. I talked to the camera like I was leaving a note for my future self. The meets and bounds don't move from mood boards. Remember that, then? Saturday showed up like a dare. Golf carts crept up my gravel as if they were following a parade route. They'd paid for folding tables unfolded along my pipe fence. Someone tied a Labrador to my middle post and asked if my outlet worked. And then Diana climbed. The table tapped her plastic champagne flute and performed Starting Today. Willow Ridge is thrilled to announce shared access to our community. Meadow, she sang, one hand, presenting my pasture like a game show prize. The cheer that rolled over the grass felt like heat. She spotted me. You should feel proud. Mason, your meadow fits our wellness plan. We'll install benches and a loop. The board voted 6-1. It's basically community property now. She popped open a can from my cooler without asking. Took a sip and smiled. I smiled back, not because it was funny, but because pity can wear good lipstick. Ever read a deed, Diana? I asked. She laughed. Oh, come on. Don't be uptight. Joining us gets you friends faster than fighting us. Enjoy the party, and she floated off to bless a teenager staking a banner into my soil. Here's the twist you didn't see coming. At least they didn't. My uncle had filed a recorded easement exemption and jurisdiction. Notice back in 1995. Document 95-11844. Plain English. No shared access. No common area tie. In no association. Authority formed after the date of record. I pulled certified copies at the county clerk. Evelyn at the counter stamped them and said my uncle used to update that file every year. When they get loud, make the paper louder, she grinned. I scanned everything. Emailed PDFs to myself and to Deputy Cole Ramirez at the sheriff's office, a quiet man who lets volume hang itself, and I filled out a trespass pre-notice because polite asks only work on people who know the word. No means stop. All week, the pressure campaign strutted flyers, zip tied to my fence. Beautification committee, benches and path maps with my ditch labeled communal water feature. An official-looking email accusing me of obstructing community use and quoting a bylaw that didn't apply to dirt outside the plat. My trail cam caught Diana's husband Neil at 12:43 a.m., tugging my chain and whispering, "Loosen the hinge." The hinge answered with cold metal. I saved the clip and waited. That happened. The second cookout arrived bigger and bolder string lights on my posts, a volleyball net rattling my fence each time someone spiked at 7:12 p.m. Diana clinked her glass again. To community property. And that was my cue. I set down my drink, walked to the gate, and swung it shut. The clank sliced the music. Plastic cups hovered in midair. The Labrador stopped panting. "You can't lock guests in," she snapped. Clipboard tight like a shield. "They're not guests," I said. "They're trespassers." She tried the vote line again. "The board has authority." And I said the sentence that ended the discussion. "Votes don't move a boundaries paper, does I?" Held the certified deed and the exemption up to the bars. Then I hit call on Ramirez and put him on speaker. Private property, active trespass documentation on hand. He said he was on the way. Murmurs rolled. A board member named Lori went pale. Toby stared at his shoes. Neil glared like a last-hand poker player about to lose his truck. The patrol car crested the hill at 7:36 p.m., red and blue washing over faces that had been so sure of themselves 10 minutes earlier. Ramirez didn't posture. He read Book 311. Page 60 parcel. BC 19, 0472. Doc. 95-11844. Then he looked at Diana and asked the only question that mattered. "Do you have anything that supersedes a recorded exemption?" She shuffled glossy flyers. "We voted to allocate community resources." He shook his head. "Votes don't move a boundary." Her smile cracked. "You're humiliating us." She whispered. I kept my voice steady, not cruel, just true. "No, Diana, you did that." "When you stood on a table and called my land ours, Ramirez asked folks to pack up," he cautioned Neil about tampering based on my midnight footage, and the crowd broke like a sandcastle meeting. The tied string lights clicked off, chairs folded. People squeezed through the gate without looking at me. They didn't have to. The ground had already told them the story. I didn't celebrate. I opened the lock when Ramirez asked, "I've seen pride go from roar to whisper. You don't kick it while it kneels." I put the deed back in its sleeve in an old pine hutch my uncle built. Poured a glass of water and let adrenaline drain in slow waves. It feels like relief, braided with grief for the hours stolen by folks who confuse confidence with consent. Later, Ben texted, "Sorry for not speaking up sooner." I told him you just did, then he sent a screenshot, emergency board meeting Monday. Leadership concerns on the agenda. I stayed home and stacked firewood. While they met, Ben recorded a snippet. Lori read the exemption into the minutes. Toby asked how a non-platted parcel could ever become a shared amenity. Neil mumbled about implied use. Ramirez, who'd stopped by to explain the law, said implied use dies in the presence of recorded. No, they voted to remove her. No drama, no confetti. Just the sound of a chair sliding back and a gavel hitting wood. I watched the clip once and went out to the fence. The stars threw cold light across the ridge. The chain breathed in the breeze, and for the first time in days, the field sounded like itself again. If this were a brochure, we'd end right there. But life kept lifing. My mailbox got smashed. 2 mornings later, clean break. I set a new post in concrete and installed a small camera that night. It caught a hoodie snapping photos of my gate. I sent it to Ramirez for the file. Quiet returned the way noise arrived, stubborn and slow. People waved from the HOA side with that careful neighborly energy that says, we want peace more than we want to be. Right, a couple asked if their kids could see the windmill. I said it what I should have been allowed to say from the start. Ask first, respect the line, and the answer is probably yes. That's the thing about boundaries. They don't exist to keep the world out, and they exist to keep meaning in. I know some folks will say I was dramatic, that she was just trying to build community, that a vote is the same as a deed, if enough people smile at it. And some will say, I went soft by not pressing charges for every flyer and late-night stunt. Here's where I land. It wasn't theirs, and it was never going to be theirs. My uncle laid a wall with ink 3 decades ago, and I just pointed to it. Still, I won't pretend. Locking a gate mid-party isn't a choice you feel in your ribs. It was, and I made it, because I'd spent too many years being liked into losing what mattered. So here's where I end it, at the lock. At the moment, the lights went red and blue and the clipboard went quiet at the sentence that changed the room. Votes don't move, a boundary paper does. I'm not asking you to clap. I'm asking you to think. Was I protecting a principle or playing sheriff on my own dirt? Was she building community or building a mirror to admire her authority? If this were your fence, your field, your name on the deed, would you have done anything different? Drop your take in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me what you've seen in your town. Push back if you need to. I can take it. And if stories like this hit home, hit subscribe. I've got more about lines people shouldn't cross, and the quiet ways we make sure they don't.